Welcome to the Prime Property Finance Podcast with Gareth Morgan and Mark Watts. This unique podcast will dive deep into all areas of property investing finance, going behind the scenes with property professionals, investors and clients. Between us, we have 35 plus years experience in property finance. The podcast has been launched to share knowledge, mindset requirements and experiences of successful investors and professionals. We aim to simplify many of the complicated areas of finance and investing and provide valuable and easy to implement tips. Keep an eye out for our new longer episodes every Tuesday and our shorter ones every Friday. I'm super excited to announce the next episode with Jordan Jones. Jordan is a local lad in South Wales who had a huge future ahead of him in football at a professional level before a nasty injury made him retire young and led him to driving taxis. And then from there, he got into property and he's grown a decent sized portfolio. He's managing a load of other properties and super excited to watch his growth. And there's so many tools and tactics that he'll share in this episode to show how he's done that in such a short space of time. So let's jump in. Jordan, fantastic to have you on the podcast. Thanks very much for your time. It's great having you here. How are you?
I'm awesome, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Just give us a quick introduction on who you are and where you're from and what you're doing.
Yeah, so obviously my name's Jordan Jones. From Swansea, been in property for 6 years now. Built a decent sized portfolio, done a lot of flips. Obviously use other strategies, deal sourcing, rent to rent, raised finance. So yeah. Excited
for the conversation, mate, because I know you know, for a young guy, you've been very busy, and I know you've been very busy in the last couple of years as well. So just before we dive into the property side, do you give us a quick background of what you did before property and a little bit of background and why you got into property before we start talking about the specifics of property.
Awesome, yeah. So when I left school, was playing football down the Swans. I had a terrible injury when I was 18, which 2 operations, ended up having the operation, the second operation reversed. Then was deciding what do I do, because obviously I had to stop playing football. Was going to go back to uni, then decided, no, I'm going to drive taxis for my dad's taxi firm. Drove taxis for a while then. But when I just left the Swans, I bought a property and, subconsciously was wanting to get into property, but managed to buy that property. Whilst I was driving taxis, was starting to do a bit of research on property more, and then realised I could refinance that property. Refinanced it and just kind of used that money then to recycle and grow a portfolio and raise the finance to do what I'm doing today, really.
Yeah, awesome. I didn't actually realise that you had an aspiring Swans career, so that's news to me. So I bet obviously frustrating to, when you've got your, eyes on a big professional football career, to have that taken away from you at a sort of that age when you're kind of trying to make it into the big time, to then kind of be hit on you with a couple of nasty injuries and having to reassess and reevaluate what you're going to do with your life is a difficult time. So I'm sure that posed some challenges. How did you sort of overcome those?
Yeah, well, like you say, you mentioned there, it was really difficult because it had all I ever done. I was there since the age of 7 all the way through till 20. And when I was initially told that I was just going to have an operation and I was going to get back to normal, playing fine. So I was okay. And then we went back up and it was kind of a case of, you'd be lucky to go out the front door and run down the road now. So it was big difference big change. So when I had to stop playing, it was a very difficult time. But I guess if I didn't stop playing, I don't know where I'd be playing today, whether I'd be playing Premier League or maybe League One, League Two. But I think I've always been quite determined and motivated to go on and do well. So I was kind of like, these are the cards that I've been dealt. Nothing I can do about it. So now I'm going to hone down on the driving the taxi side, and ended up working all the hours under the sun type thing. My mother would always be ringing me, oh, what time are you coming home? Been out since whatever. And then my dad would be saying, oh, just leave him, just leave him. But yeah, it was kind of a case of once I started driving taxis, I was like, right, I don't want to do this forever. But while I'm doing it, I'm just going to give it my all and put as many hours behind me as I could to get as much money in as I could. And then I knew that was going to be kind of a stepping stone to me going on, and whatever I wanted to do, it was right, this is going to be my foundation for now, and then I can go on and do what I want to do. Obviously, driving taxis was an eye-opener compared to playing football, because you'd be picking up people who were different characters, and kind of, well, it built me probably to the person that I am today. So helped me deal with a lot of good and bad situations, people trying to run away from you and not pay you and that sort of thing. But yeah, it kind of set me up now to where I am today. So yeah, I look back and think they were the days. No, they weren't, but
Well, I guess the big lesson there is, one, that you were prepared to work really hard, and you had some challenges which you had to overcome. And as part of that, you were exchanging time for money, and you saved that money and then started investing in assets, and then realized that maybe you're best off spending that time and motivation and investing more in assets as opposed to exchanging your time for money. So I can see you've been hard at that, and you have been working really hard since then. So obviously that work ethic, and that probably comes from being a top level footballer as well, isn't it? You don't get there without having a great work ethic. So and obviously your dad had his own business. How much of an influence did that have on you?
Yeah, a lot. I'd say, because I'd always see, if I was going up to, well, initially when I was started driving taxis, I'd be going to work at 5-6 o'clock in the morning, and my dad would be up invoicing and doing his side of it. So I was like, right, well, if he's still doing it at his age, then I should be working harder maybe. So yeah, that's probably a lot from my parents, seeing them work really hard when I was younger as well. Because obviously when I was playing football, I'd be playing on a Sunday for the academy. We'd be playing, I don't know, in Liverpool or Cheltenham or Plymouth or wherever. My dad would then work a Saturday night till 4-5 o'clock, wake up, well, till 3 o'clock, wake up, have a couple of hours sleep, and then he'd be on the road then to come and watch me. So I think I subconsciously started to see that when I was like 13, probably. I just he was working last night, but he's standing on the side of the pitch now. So I was like, oh, right, that's maybe what it takes, type of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I think people take, I'm working hard in inverted commas. People have different levels of working hard, don't they? And I think that's the nitty gritty that a lot of people don't see. They see things on social media. They see, nice cars and various bits and bobs and what seems as outward success, but they don't actually see a lot of that stuff that goes on behind the scenes 99% of the time, which is the reality of it all. So that's interesting. So moving on into the property side of things, then talk us through a little bit about your property. Obviously you bought your first house at 19, which is a young age by most people's standpoint, and talk us through where your career, your property investing career started from 19 and where you got to now.
Yeah, so bought the first one, kind of left it then for 3 years. Didn't really know what I was doing with it. I was having rent offer every month. So I was like, right, okay, so I'm driving taxis now, but I'm having an extra £450-500 a month coming in. So I was like, right, I'm not doing anything for this. So I think that's probably what spiked my curiosity as well. I was getting paid without having to do anything. So right, okay, I need to do a little bit more of this. Done a little bit more research on it, realised that I could remortgage that property then after 3 years. So remortgaged it for 120 when I bought it for 60,000. So I spent a little bit there, not much. Carpets, painting. Didn't even change the kitchen when I first started. It was kind of like, we'll just keep it as tight as we can. But yeah, managed to get that revalued at 120 then, years after. So I had £90,000 back. And then was like, right, okay, what do I kind of do with this money now? So I thought, well, I'll buy it again. Done the same thing, buy, refurbish, refinance. And then I went on myself then and started doing more training in property, because I was like, if I'm going to get into this, then I kind of need to know the ins and outs of what happens and how I can maybe go a bit further or go further faster maybe. So when I got educated, continued to grow my portfolio. Then I started using obviously other strategies such as deal sourcing, rent to rent, where we've now moved on to more Airbnb management, where we've got 20 units, which is good. And then raising the finances alongside using my own capital. I started to raise the finance then to buy deals. And yeah, I've kind of started doing that then around, well, 2.5, 3 years ago. And since then, we've now up to, well, 14 properties in the portfolio, selling a couple now at the moment as well. But yeah, kind of started raising finance. Then I got more educated, realised that I could use bridging, started speaking to good brokers. Obviously, I ended up coming on board with yourself, started off with Tahani. She moved away, so now obviously more with Lindsay now. And yeah, you've kind of helped me in that demeanour of financing side as well, because when I first started, I only thought, well, if I use my own cash, then that's all I could use. But then since obviously that, I've learned to raise the finance and use bridging as well. So yeah, that's what I'm kind of up to.
Quite a few things to unpick there, so I'll just kind of run through them. You've said you've gone from 1 to 13 or 14 properties in your own portfolio now, so that's your own portfolio, but also are you managing other people's properties you said you've got 20 units under management on the Airbnb side, is that right?
That's
so you've
right.
got a portfolio of yours that you're managing for other people, and then also your own portfolio as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, really busy time.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously we're actively selling deals. And I've also opened up, 3-4 months ago, my own mentorship program. So I'm obviously helping other people get started now in deal sourcing, rent to rent, if they want to buy, refurbish, refinance, flip properties, and also raise finance as well. So
Awesome. We'll come on to that in a second. So just nipping back to the raising finance piece. Obviously, this is a property finance podcast, so it makes sense for we go into that a little bit deeper. What were the barriers then? So for you to go from 1 to 14 properties in a 3-year period where you were actually active, what were the challenges there what did you have to learn? You said you learned a lot from an education piece. Talk a bit more about what had to change for you in order for you to get that, because I'm guessing you didn't have all the cash yourself.
No. So as we all know, you can only have so much of your own money before it gets tied up in deals anyway. So you have to be quite creative and try and find other finance from an investor as a fixed return or a joint venture. So when I understood then how to kind of position myself in front of investors and speak to investors, it became investable. That's when I started then raising finance. So yeah, it took time obviously, but I think it helped for me because I already had a few properties in my portfolio, so I could kind of lean on my experience as well. So people knew that I was already in the game, so that may have helped me. But I think if I was to go back, raising finance is probably one of the first things that I would look at doing.
Yeah, because see, obviously your first deal, you paid 60k for it and you got it valued at 120. So, at a 75% mortgage at, 90k, you've had all your money back out and some, which allows you to recycle that cash and go again. And by showing people this is what you've done before, then that gives them confidence that you know what you're doing and you can do it again. Maybe that one was a fluke, I don't know, but maybe not. But that's the thing, isn't it? You identifying good opportunities, and that's through sourcing, isn't it? And relationships with agents and various other formats. But actually then going, well, buying in the right area, buying at the right price, making sure it's the right kind of refurb to do. Because if your strategy is, all the same types of properties, what deal, you'll be able to quickly tell what deals work and what deals don't work. And it's like almost that cookie cutter approach, isn't it? So it's much easier to raise finance for a specific type of deal when you've got experience, and effectively that becomes your product, isn't it? And that you're selling.
Definitely. And I think another thing that really helped me was selling deals to investors. because once I sold the deal to an investor and then went through the renovation process where I project managed, and then back end they got the result of either refinancing it or selling the property. And then a couple of my JV partners have come from that, where I've given a good service up front with the deal sourcing, and now they've come on board as either a private investor or a joint venture partner. So lower entry was, well, maybe them testing the waters with me, and then they've gone, right, okay, I can work with this guy. So they've ended up investing, bigger money in a joint venture.
Yeah, awesome. And then just talking around, then you mentioned, I know we had a sit down because I think it was your father came with you when we had a sit down to talk about bridging finance for the first time. And I recall, because I think your father's an investor as well, right? And he's bought a few properties himself, but his approach was very different. He was very against finance, wasn't he? And trying to get him convinced on the bridging is a tool and not an expensive thing. Talk us through a little bit about the background on that.
Yeah, so it's crazy really, because we've got different mentalities. May it be because I'm younger and I want to leverage now a little bit more whilst I'm young, but I think he probably held me back a bit, maybe, because he was not held me back, but when I was first getting educated, and I was saying, you should be buying, refurbing, refinancing, you should be leveraging, using bridging and this sort of thing. And he was like, no. And, just this is the only way. If you buy it cash, you leave it. And then, but I think obviously he knows now when once he's understood I think he knew everything, but didn't want to take on any debt or leverage, but not realizing that it's good debt. And I've always said to him, well, for years now, if you would start leveraging early, you would be 10 times ahead of where you are now. Oh, I'm happy. I can sleep at night now. I've got no debt on me. But yeah, we're both a little bit different. Obviously, I'm leveraging stuff now whilst I'm young. But as you know, with inflation, I'm hoping that loan's going to decrease on its own without me having to pay it off. But, it may come a point in the next 15 years where I go, okay, well, I can now start paying off the mortgages so I own them outright, or whether I just keep leveraging. So, yeah.
Yeah, and the beauty about property investing, and this is a conversation that I have on a daily basis, people say, is this a good deal? Is it, and all these various things. And I say, it depends, because is it a good deal for me and a good deal for you and a good deal for your dad? That are three separate answers, aren't they? Because it depends on your circumstances, it depends on your timeline, it depends on your your targeted returns and your approach and strategy and so many different things. And so there's no right or wrong answers. And this is why it's difficult, is when people say, is this a good deal, to give them a straight answer. I always kind of bounce it back at them and tell me what their criteria is and what their goals are will kind of help them determine whether that's a good deal for them or not. And obviously there's tools and calculators that you can use to determine some of these figures, but also sometimes when people are stuck with this attitude or mentality that your dad had, and it's not a bad one by any stretch, because I think if everyone could be debt free, then they'd take that option, wouldn't they? So he wasn't exactly in a bad position, and he was doing stuff. But that mentality of, I have to save up cash to buy a property and then save up cash to buy in the next property, it's a time intensive thing, and you're potentially missing out on a lot of growth from you're missing out on cash flow, but you're also missing out on capital growth over time as well. So that is a mindset shift for sure.
Yeah. And again, I think it depends on the person, what do they want to get, as you say, from different deals. Are they in property because they're looking at it in 15, 20 years time, where if you leave in money in a deal, you don't really mind as much. But I guess for some people, if they've only got, say, £50,000, if you're going to leave money in a deal, then it's like, well, unless I know how to raise finance, I'm going to be stuck back with 40k if you leave 10k in a deal. So yeah, knowing short-term and long-term goals is massive.
And just to labour the point then about using other people's money and raising finance, have you got any tips around, maybe just, what was the big mindset shift that got you to raise finance or to help raise finance then?
Yeah, I just think that obviously when you're talking to people, you're subconsciously thinking, how can I help you as well? Because a lot of people that I've spoke to that have invested have got either pensions or they've got an ISA where they're earning 2-3%, and knowing how to position yourself in front of them is massive, because if you can offer them 8 to 10%, they're going to think, oof, if it's backed by assets, obviously, and you've got to know your security as well when you are raising finance. But as long as everything's secure, then why wouldn't they invest that money with you and get a much better return? So that's the way that instead of chasing the money, you're giving opportunities as well to people,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, you've only got a limited deals that, somebody's going to fund this deal for you. And so, you want it to be them, don't you? Ultimately, you want give them the opportunity to earn more money than what they're currently earning on their money that's sat in the bank. And if it's more than 85,000 in the bank, it's not secured and it's not protected. So there's so many reasons, isn't there, why people should be looking to work with trusted people in the property space. But, buyer beware and caution, of course, because there's plenty of good stories as well as bad stories. So, awesome. So obviously you've focused on BRR, you said, so you've grown the portfolio by buying properties, refurbing them, and then refinancing and renting them out, and then and doing it over and over again. You're now in, at a young age in property full time. Where are you working? Where are you spending most of your time, and who are you helping with your time? Obviously once the properties are done and there's project management stuff, have you got any sort of clients that you work with?
Basically for me now, it's a case of finding as many deals as possible, acquiring the finance, because I've taken on a project manager now. So he's kind of running everything for me, so I can kind of not look at what's happening over there. I need to obviously say yes or no to things, but that part of I'm not amazing at it, right? So I want to outsource that part. So that's what I've done. And not only that, when you're managing properties or renovations yourself, and you're organising all the trades, and you're having to go to Selco, and you have to go to B&Q, or you have people turn up on site who are working on day rate, and there's stuff that's not there. So you've got to somehow now magically go and get that stuff for them to be there, and whilst they're getting paid. And then you're still trying to speak with agents, meet with landlords, raise finance. It's too much. So I found that by outsourcing that now, I freed up a lot of my time, and now I can focus more on money-making tasks. So I think I went a bit off topic there, but I thought...
No, but really valuable stuff, mate, because, this is, effectively you're building a business, aren't you? And it's going back to the point that I said really early on around buying back your time, exchanging time for money. Now you've built the business to a certain point, and now you realize, well, actually this isn't working for me at the moment. I can't do all of these things. I need to buy back my time again. And I don't know if you may not have heard of this book, but a cracking book by a guy called Dan Martell, which is actually called Buy Back Your Time. And it's a phenomenal book. I highly recommend reading it, and to anyone listening, reading it. And it's about, getting to a certain level, and how do I buy back more of my time to focus on higher value tasks, to bring in more deals, to speak with more investors, or whatever it is that you might be doing. So now that you've got more time, you're looking at more deals and you're speaking with investors. Are you doing anything else?
Well, I'm obviously pushing the social media side of things as well. May it be to invest, to find finance, or as mentioned earlier on, I've opened a mentorship program as well. So people that are looking to get started, I'm helping them in that demeanour, may it be through deal sourcing, rent to rent, BRRRs, flips, and raising finance as well. So it took me a long time to get that up and running with all the back end stuff, but now we're at a point where I'm taking people on board now, so that's great, and I'm spending time with them too. So that's in-person stuff and over Zoom, so that can take some time from me as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's interesting, and I think you just said that again, and I know this is more for the listeners, or maybe the newer listeners, who are listening, I'm just going to explain the difference between what you mentioned a couple of times, raising finance and working with investors. And I just want to take a minute or two just to explain the difference between what that means and what we do. So obviously what we do is we are mortgage and property finance specialists. So we help people with mortgages, buy-to-let mortgages, which are long-term finance. And then from a short-term perspective, we help with bridging finance and development finance. So if Jordan's looking for a deal and he's buying it at auction and it's not mortgageable, so he'll come to us for a bridging loan, which would probably be about 70% loan to value. What that means is he's going to lend 70,000 from the lender, but he also has a 30,000 shortfall that he has to put in for the deposit plus the fees, etc. So he might need around £50,000 for this deal. Now, as we mentioned earlier on, Jordan didn't want to go through that phase of doing one at a time and basically doing one deal a year, because that was too slow for him. There's no way with the pot of money he had, he could go from 1 to 14 properties in 3 years. So raising private finance then for that shortfall, we're working with other investors, people who've got money in the bank, or other business people or other property investors, or people like that, friends, family, whatever it may be. They are, lending him the money to go alongside the bridging, and then he's putting those two pots of funds together to do the deal, purchase the property, renovate it, add value to it, and then he's refinancing out on the back end to pay off the bridging loan and also to pay off the investor with their interest. And then that means then he's got an asset which he's then keeping for long-term capital appreciation and growth and income. So just breaking those two separate elements, we don't do any of the private finance element, which what Jordan's talking about, and that's where he spends a lot of time looking for investment to support doing more deals.
Definitely. Do you want to talk a bit there about the recent bridge that I done? Okay?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I had an opportunity came up to buy a property that was probably should have been at auction, but it was with the sales department. Needed work. Don't think it was mortgageable. So it came to a point where I had a couple of deals going on. Didn't have the finance to buy the property, but I had another property that was unencumbered, so didn't have a mortgage on the property, which is worth 200,000. I then used that property as collateral to buy another property. So instead of remortgaging that property that was 200,000, I used it as bridging to buy another property. I borrowed, I want to say it was 75% of that. Yeah, well, I did. I borrowed 75% of the £200,000 property. With other fees, I think I was up to 157,000. So I used that money then to buy the property that I purchased, and I used the money from that other property in the 150,000 to refurb the property as well. So the initial plan was actually to refinance that property, and now I'm coming towards the end. I think I'm actually going to keep it. Not to sell it, but now I'm going to keep it. So I think I'm going to leave, I think it's about £5,000 in the deal. So I would have had bought an asset for £5,000, which is worth 200,000. So.
Yeah, awesome. And that's something that we do quite a bit of, is where, and people think I can't do property deals because I don't have any cash or I don't have any savings, but actually they might have some assets or other properties with no mortgage or very low mortgages or lots of equity in them, which means they could release funds from those properties to buy other properties. So that's a tactic, a tool that we see very often with people who are looking to grow their portfolio. So yeah, great heads up there. Great. So thanks for that. Some of this has been really valuable, and I think listeners, for a guy of such a young age with obviously a clearly very motivated and driven individual to have done as much as you've done at your age is fascinating. And I can see how, you could see that you've started the mentoring side now, because, people will want to, can see that you know what you're talking about. You're not only your own portfolio, but you're managing 20 other properties and you're starting to build a business around that as well. So what about if we talk about some of the challenges you've had along the way, and all the things that you mentioned in terms of leaving academy football and going into driving taxis? Some of those would have set you up in dealing with people trying to run away without paying, and I'm sure you've had some tenants who haven't paid, and there's a lot of headaches that come with it, and late nights and early mornings. What are the key sort of challenges that you've had?
I would probably say I had some issues with builders, because when I got to a point probably about 2 years ago where I wanted to do multiple deals at a time. So I was using people that I knew, but it was, a buy refurbish refinance was going to take me 7 to 10 months because I was waiting on people. I went away and said, right, next deal I'm going to use a company. Went away probably naive, inexperienced, and I ended up selling the property, but I sold it for not even a profit. I think it was, it just about made my money back from inexperience of working with a builder. Now, I paid too much upfront. Deposit was too big. Instead of doing stage payments, I was kind of paying him when I thought it was right. When he asked for payment, I was paying him. Got probably 3/4 of the way through, and I was a bit like, flipping heck, this has gone over a little bit more than what we said it was going to go over. And I checked, and I was like, it's meant to be a £35,000 refurb. Ended up nearly hitting like £62,000 for a renovation. So that obviously ate all of my profit then. So since then, I've kind of been working with builders, and probably why I've moved more now to having an in-house team with a project manager, someone that I can trust, and I know isn't trying to pull the wool over my eyes. If I've got ceilings that have come down and I can see that there's a couple of rotten joists, but the rest of them are fine, all of them don't have to come out then. It's just them two, instead of them all having to come out. Or, we said that we pulled them all out, but did we actually pull them all out? Because I didn't go to the site for 2 days.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So I think navigating builders is probably a massive one. I would say if you are going to get into development early, is trying to have stage payments, vet your builders if you're going to use a full contractor. And obviously probably start earlier on was raising the finance. But then I guess what helped me was when I couldn't raise the finance, I understood how to sell deals. So when it was earlier on and people didn't really trust me with their money, but they seen a good deal and they seen that I had done some property, they were like, oh, okay, I'm happy to take a chance on him. And everything that he's saying makes sense. Obviously, when you're selling deals, you're showing purchase price, refurb cost with a quote, stamp duty, legal fees, agent fees, comparables, because I've also seen loads of deals where I'm looking at M values and I'm thinking that's blown up a little bit. And obviously I know you see it a lot because we've had some conversations where people have maybe done some courses and they're looking at M values and you're thinking, flipping heck, I don't know how you've got that. But I left losing a little bit of money on that side of things.
And I think that's part of the course, isn't it? If you did every property deal, I don't think you'll ever speak to an investor that they've never had made mistakes or not lost money, or refurbs have cost more than they should have, gone over budget, gone over time frames, builders let them down, builders pulled wool over their eyes. Those are common things. So it's just how do you put structure in place to avoid that happening? So I get you got team and systems and processes, right? So what about obviously you were coming in at a young age, with little property experience. Did you learn as you went along, or did you know the process fully?
Yeah, I guess when I first went and got education, I didn't tell anyone. So I didn't tell anyone about it, because I just spent 12 grand, and 12 grand is a lot of money, isn't it? So I spent 12 grand, didn't tell anyone. I was driving taxis, and then I guess problems that I was having is I was going through the course, trying to do what I could. Obviously, my parents knew that I'd spent the money driving taxis, and I'd come home at 6, 7 o'clock. I'd work then till 8, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, revising, studying, and doing all that sort of malarkey. And it had gone for 6, 7 months. And I hadn't made any money back or made any sort of moves. So, probably challenges I had was starting was people taking me serious. You know, I was going to some viewings and I was saying, you know, I was saying I work with investors, or they would just not take me serious. I'd put an offer forward and they'd be like, oh, I don't know if I'm even going to put that to the vendor because you're young, you know, you're driving a 64 plate Volvo. I don't know if I trust you, type of thing. But then I had a breakthrough. I bought the property and we started working really closely with an estate agent then, because they knew that I was serious, and then started selling deals through our estate agency. But yes, it was probably got to a point where I had about seven months where I was thinking, right, is this actually going to work? But I kept going and managed to sell a deal and buy a deal. And
that's probably the bit of gold that people need to hear. And there's too many people that have a go and they give up after 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months, and they're not getting anywhere. And we see it all the time. And I've been there myself. I know that feeling where you're viewing, it's not happening. You're viewing, people aren't taking you seriously. You can't raise the money. You've got the deal, but you haven't got the money. You've managed to find an investor. Now you can't get a deal. All of those painful things, and people just give up, don't they? And go, oh, this isn't for me. Or they become motivated buyers, in which case they end up buying bad deals because they need to make a deal happen because they need evidence to suggest that it's working. So, I think that's a bit of gold there, mate, to be fair. Awesome. So just moving on then, in terms of basically some top tips, we try and at the end of each, podcast, we try and just get some tips from people from different walks of life. We've got plenty of different types of guests on. Can you share a couple of tips with us that, from your investing experience to date?
Yeah. So, first one for me again, if I was to go back, I would have got educated a lot earlier than when I did. It's the same as when you're going to play tennis or whatever, you're going to have lessons. So why wouldn't you go and get trained and understand everything that's happening in property? You're going to make mistakes anyway, but you'd rather make them less costly mistakes by knowing what's happening. Another tip for me would be, again, when I first started, something that probably not hurt me, but affected me a little bit was my credit score. So when I was looking for remortgages, because my credit score wasn't right to the top, I was only limited to a certain amount of lenders, and that was something that I didn't know. So making sure that your credit rating is good, credit score is good. And another tip would probably be get around people who are doing what you want to do, and just try and get as much from them as you can. Because if you're around a group of friends or whoever who are not really doing much, or they're great on the weekend but you don't really get much else from them, then you want to try and look at your circle and see where, right, are they moving towards something that you want to be involved in, or are you looking to do a little bit more?
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, George. I think from education piece is huge. It's so important. Whilst I was a mortgage advisor and doing the finance piece on a day in, day out basis, there's so much more to property investing that you need to know. And I've paid for lots of education myself over the years and continue to keep educating, because it's such a big space, right? And there's always things to learn. And the problem with our space is that things change all the time. So the core principles are the same and will always remain the same. But there are so many tools, tactics, criteria, laws, all of these things that are changing all the time, and we have to adapt. And so if you don't keep up with it, you just get left behind. So super, super important. And that goes with your network then, doesn't it? And I think that probably ties into point 3, really, around getting around the right people, making sure you're spending time with people who are doing what you want to do, who are you're aspiring to be like, and learning from them. And then finally the credit score, and obviously something that we talk about on a daily basis. We see it all the time. We bang that drum to people. And in the office today, we were talking about it. Someone was asking, is credit score important for buy-to-let? It's less important for buy-to-let than it is on a residential, yes. However, if lenders want to lend you money, if you're going to lend someone down the pub, or down the gym, maybe not the pub anymore, 10, 20 quid, or maybe not that amount. Maybe if someone down the pub or the gym asked you for 500 quid, you're not going to just hand it over to them, are you? You're going to say, well, why do you want it? What do you want it for? How are you going to pay me back? That's basically the key principles that lenders go through, but it's just bigger numbers. And if you are asking them to borrow 100, 200, 300, 500,000 pounds on a buy-to-let mortgage, yes, the tenant's going to pay it and the property's got some security. But if you can't manage your own personal finances, and you're always late on your credit card bills, you've missed direct debits on various things, you've gone over your overdraft, you've got some CCJs for some water bills. Why, if you can't manage that, your own personal finances, which effectively is a business, if you can't manage the business of you, how are you going to manage the business of 1, 2, 3, 10, 15 properties? So the principle is, yes, have good credit. And, by having that good credit and managing it, is making sure that you've got the best deals available to you all the time. And so it's not costing you thousands in extra interest and fees as well.
Yeah.
So, look, thanks for those, mate. It's been great having you on. Been really, really exciting to watch you grow and develop over the last couple of years, and how much you've just, your portfolio and your business is skyrocketing. So I wish you well with it. If people wanted to get in touch or learn a bit more, I know you mentioned earlier about your socials. I've been watching you on there, and you're way more active now and on there, and it's gone another level. So really great to see. What's the best way for people to follow you and to connect?
So Instagram and YouTube is both Jordan L Jones 10. So both of them the same.
Jordan L Jones 10 on Instagram and on YouTube, and we'll drop them on the show notes as well. So if anyone wants to get in touch, then they can. Jordan, thanks very much for your time, mate. Wishing you all the best for the rest of the year ahead and the next couple of years, and look forward to doing more business with you soon.
Appreciate it as well. Thank you very much, Gareth.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. We hope you have learned something and have some tips to take away. We'd be very grateful if you enjoyed the show. You could give us a review and share with anyone that you know that may be interested. And of course, subscribe to the show so you can get notified when a new episode is released. If you'd like us to answer any questions or go deeper on a specific topic, please drop us a message at primeproperty.finance. See you on the next episode.